Welcome to another edition of the Heron Outlet. She is Alex Winley. I am Ian Hest, and after a long 2-week break that, with all that has happened, feels like it was forever ago, Inter Miami will return to the pitch this Saturday as they travel up north to take on the Philadelphia Union in what will be the start of the second half of Inter Miami's season, a 34-game schedule in MLS. Inter Miami at 17 games, right at that midway point, albeit a different schedule this year with a lot more competitions, changing things and changing timing. Inter Miami, in terms of their MLS season, right at the second half. So we will start there with the second half of the season, Alex, and what has been a tumultuous 2 weeks, to say the least. A lot of information coming out and a lot of information discussed this past week. We have a slew of articles that you can check out over at the heronoutlet.substack.com. You can subscribe there to get all of the reporting that Alex and I have done throughout the week. And let's just go over a little bit of that to kind of put a bow on what we've been talking about a lot this week, with a lot of details concerning Lionel Messi's upcoming contract with the club, and also who's expected to be coming in and what changes will be made around the stadium, both in Fort Lauderdale, Drive Pink, and as we look forward to Miami Freedom Park. So, Alex, we start there with the first article that we came out with on earlier this week. I believe it was on Monday that we finally posted that was talking about Lionel Messi's contract, a 2.5-year deal, an option for 2026 as well, that is valued between $50 and $60 million. Now, how do we get to that money? Part of it is in a signing bonus. The other part is in an actual salary that Lionel Messi will receive. And then the final portion of that is an equity stake in ownership in Inter Miami, which he will receive after. Part of that valuation comes in when you talk about the pure terms that Lionel Messi will be making over the life of this deal. That is far more than Xherdan Shaqiri, who is playing for Chicago, is making right now the highest paid player in MLS. And you know, some of the other players we've seen of Insigne and Bernardeschi that are higher paid in Toronto FC. What do you make of this deal, of the valuation and of the ownership stake, which is very unique? We've only ever seen it happen once a time before with David Beckham, now as the part owner of Inter Miami, and not even as directly as this will be for Lionel Messi.
Yeah, it's smart, and yeah, and it's within the confines of MLS rules, right? I know a lot of people think that the league is subsidizing this, and according to a source, MLS is not involved in this in that regard. They're not subsidizing this deal. It is completely within the rules of MLS and their roster and their salary cap, and so. Obviously, with Messi, they're going to have to go above and beyond. You said Xherdan Shaqiri, he's making what, $7 million a year. They're gonna obviously have to go beyond that for Messi, and that's what they're doing. Like you said, Ian, 2.5-year deal with the 2026 option. He's gonna get an equity in the team once he retires, similar to David Beckham. Obviously, a small percentage of the team. Also, there are two contracts. There's his player contract, and there's stuff that he and his team Messi are doing on the side with I believe Apple TV and Adidas and Fanatics. So two of these, obviously his player deal and then his player deal and then his I guess commercial side of the deal.
Yeah.
I suppose two separate things. So as far as his player deal goes, he has 2.5 years till 2026. I'm reviewing the notes I have here. The league is not subsidizing this, just so we're clear reporting wise. The league's not a part of this, and Miami are within the confines of the salary cap rules. So, I think it is obviously they're doing their best, per the source that they will get that deal done sooner rather than later. Obviously, they're just in the final stages, more or less. So, it's a lot of moving parts, but it's impressive how they pulled this off so quickly. And kudos to the front office for moving that quickly. And it's a lot of money, a lot of business ventures. But once Messi's on the field, I think a lot of the fans are probably gonna forget about this and just want to see him kind of play and help Inter Miami.
Yeah, and just to clarify a couple of things there, these are two separate contracts. One is entirely independent of the other. So his player contract is negotiated for and come to terms with Inter Miami. Everything else that you hear about Apple TV, about Adidas, about Fanatics, that Inter Miami is not involved in. That is a separate part of the deal. It is not being negotiated by Inter Miami. That is entirely on Team Messi with those separate entities. Furthermore, I was talking with people in the league office once we had gotten this information previously about how the equity stake would be processed in terms of Messi. And what they told me is that it will go through the same process as every other additional owner in MLS would go through. So if there is ever an additional partner in any ownership opportunity, that needs to go through league approval. That needs to go through all the financial matters. It goes to a vote. The same process will apply to Messi. It's just written in the contract that he will be offered that. And then we'll need to still go through that process. All things considered, it would be expected to pass. You don't really make deals like this without them passing. But it will go through.
Yeah.
Messi will be a part of the ownership group of Inter Miami, no different than, once upon a time with the original with Masahiro's son and with Marcelo Claure. Like the same process of minority ownership stake will take place here as well. When we move on, we talk about who will possibly be playing with Messi in Miami. Sergio Busquets looks to be close to the finish line of signing a designated player spot with the team. That means 2 designated player spots will need to be opened up. The easy one, which probably I believe has already been done. I'll double check on that before anybody quotes me on it, but it should be, is Gregory being bought down. It's very simple. It's a very easy process. Miami has the allocation money to do it. Gregory doesn't take that much. The other one that would be a little bit of a hurt, which I know people don't want to do, is Leo Campana, buying him down. It is possible Miami does lose those young designated player spots if they so choose. Alex, you had some wonderful reporting earlier this week about Campana still being in the plans for Inter Miami. So I just want you to elaborate on that, and also in terms of what that would mean for Rodolfo Pizarro and his big deal.
Yeah, per source, Leo Campana is very much in Inter Miami's plans. I know a lot of people were speculating. I know there's this one Senegalese striker that's linked to Inter Miami, Maktar Gay, I think, out of Rio Zaragoza, that people are saying, that could be the Leo Campana replacement. But no, Leo Campana is firmly in Inter Miami's plans. Obviously, things can change, but per a source, obviously, Leo Campana is here to stay per that source. It's just crazy because there's just a lot of movement regarding DPs, but obviously the Heron outlet reporting that Busquets will be a DP, so naturally Campana is staying as far as we know. But as far as Rodolfo Pizarro, on the other hand, he is, this is not reporting, this is just mainly my opinion, and Ian, I'm sure you share it. Rodolfo Pizarro will probably get shipped off to another MLS team or just bought out entirely because of the incomings. Obviously Gregory can buy him down. With Busquets, you just, he's obviously going to have to take a place, either Campana, and we know that Campana is staying, or Pizarro, which, even before Messi got into the fold, the team was looking to move on Pizarro even before that. So, so right now, we can confirm as of this moment that Campana is in the future plans. As far as Pizarro, this is just our opinion. He will probably get bought out or moved on. And there's also some other cap things that they can do that, Ian, I'm sure you can explain this a little bit better, that, Jorge Mas did post that photo on his Twitter account with the 3 jerseys. Who's going to be that? Who's going to be that third person that comes in for Inter Miami? Right now it's Busquets, Messi, and then take your pick of the rumors that they're linked to. So
yeah, and strong rumors of Jordi Alba. I don't want to sneak around that. There are strong rumors of that, and that he is under consideration. Whether or not that winds up being the third or not has still yet to happen. That is not a finalized deal, but there is rumor that they have both been in touch, and that would make a lot of sense. There's been other rumors that I think are less serious than that one. Let's talk about some of the finances that go along with this, because with Rodolfo Pizarro, some might be saying, well, why hasn't, if he's going to be released, why hasn't he done it? Well, it behooves Miami to wait as long as possible before doing it, as they continue to eat up the remainder of his salary. Remember, he's a free agent at the end of the year. They owe him right now about $2 million on a check that they have to write like immediately if they got rid of him right now. The longer they wait that out, the less you're paying in installments, and it winds up being less of a lump sum in the end. So it kind of makes sense if they can't sign Messi or Busquets until July 5th, at least wait until July 4th until you're going to do that. See if you have offers that come in, see if you're able to move him on, and just wait until the absolute last moment before you have to make that decision. I think that that's just smart business and probably why you're seeing it move its legs a little slower on it. Let's not forget Rodolfo's been injured for the past couple of weeks. And so trying to get him back onto the field for potential teams to see him would also be in the best interest of Miami. You had mentioned that they have some other factors that go into it. We all know that they're still under the sanctions for the remainder of this year. That ends at the end of this year. So also involved in these deals, it would be very smart to figure out a way to defer money into 2024 and 2025. If we're talking about a Busquets, that would be very advantageous if you can possibly make it work. I don't know if the league would do them any favors in terms of that. That would be a very big ask, and they've said they're not getting any help. So I would doubt that that would be the case. But remember, they got $1.3 million plus Kamal Miller in the trade involving Bryce Duke and Ariel Lassiter early on in April. So they did get a lot of allocation money there. Expect that to be used in this secondary transfer window. That money has to be used. If it's not, it's lost in this secondary transfer window. So that's where a bulk of the money is going to come from, is what you paid to get when you got rid of Bryce Duke and when you got rid of Ariel Lassiter. The money that came in for that is what will facilitate a deal like that. Finally, Alex, just on personnel matters, there is talk that they're down to 3 potential finalists for the head coaching position. Currently, interim head coach Javier Morales was asked at training this week if he was one of those 3 finalists, and with a chuckle said, "No, they already know me." And that was a little tongue-in-cheek way of Javi being Javi. He's a very lighthearted guy in that matter. But there is word that Tata Martino is expected to be the front runner for that candidacy, and those 2 unnamed people are still lagging behind. We'll see if a decision is expected to be made. I expected it to be made sooner rather than later, especially before July 5th. Yeah. And probably I'd say in those first few days in July 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I would say the game against Austin is July 1st. If right after that game you started to have maybe that Sunday or Monday when the team is announcing a head coach, I think that that's probably the window of what we're looking at.
Yeah, and per source, there's 3 finalists with Tata Martino, obviously, maybe being reportedly the front runner. It would just make a lot of sense on a sporting perspective. You know, he's coached Messi, he's coached Busquets, he's coached Joseph Martinez to an MLS Cup in 2019. Maybe Tata Martino plus Messi, obviously, is the key to unlocking Joseph. You know, he came to Miami on a high note with high expectations, and he's fallen flat. But he's a striker. He needs balls into his feet to score. And similarly to Leo Campana, both of their numbers are down, and it's due to no real creativity or facilitation in the middle of the pitch in regards to ball movement and just consistent shot creating actions. But yeah, I think when Tata does get confirmed, I think it'll be a wise choice. He knows MLS, which is a huge deal, not just for Messi, but for Inter Miami. They've never had a coach come in with MLS experience. With Diego Alonso, Phil Neville, they were both very, blind to the MLS rules, and it showed on the field for both coaches. But with Tata Martino coming in, he knows the league, he's coached in it, he's won in MLS, and he knows what he's getting himself into. And you have that on top of Messi and Busquets coming, obviously outsiders to the league. Tata, is Argentine, has coached Messi, will know what they're both Busquets and Messi are getting into when coming into the league. So I think when he is confirmed, Martino, I think it'll just be a home run appointment. I think it'll be the smartest head coaching fit that Miami has made in their history, besides, appointing Javi Morales as interim head coach because he's just so respected and so knowledgeable. But yes, the Heron outlet did report that there are 3 finalists with Tata Martino as a front runner. Like you said, Ian, we should know sooner rather than later when that decision will be made, but more likely the first week of July, because July 5th is when that transfer window opens up, and obviously you want Tata to input his say in the future players that he will be coaching. So lots of moving parts for Miami, coaching wise, players, heck, even the stadium as well, and just a lot of moving things for the team. And buckle up, Inter Miami CF fans, both new and old, because it's just going to be a crazy month of July. And right as we head into the summer months, it's heating up. It's heating up.
And you did mention the stadium updates. We do have the latest article over at the Substack Heron Outlet, the heronoutlet.substack.com, where you can read all the updates that are going on, both for Drive Pink and an update on Miami Freedom Park, which should start to see a lot of changes happen very soon in July and August with an exciting schedule that they have planned out there. You can check that out on the Substack. As we're there, though, one thing that I did want to say is, we've talked about this for several weeks with a lot of speculation from other places that Inter Miami would consider moving games from Drive Pink Stadium. And I've been hearing, and I've been very loud about this, that has not been the case, that Miami is committed to playing MLS games at Drive Pink Stadium, and they will be playing MLS games at Drive Pink Stadium. The Leagues Cup games will be played at Drive Pink Stadium as well. And so other than a potential, this is where the new conversations that I've heard have been having, that there is conversation that should Miami make the U.S. Open Cup final, that's beating Cincinnati and host, that being that they couldn't be RSL. The only way they host is Miami versus Houston Dynamo in the final. That game could possibly be moved to Hard Rock Stadium. Hard Rock Stadium has 65,000 people that it holds. Obviously, this has not been finalized. It is a conversation that they have had with Hard Rock Stadium as the possibility of it, but it would only be in the case of a U.S. Open Cup final that Miami would move to Hard Rock Stadium. All right. With all of that being said, let's get back to the games, because Miami returns to action this week after 2 weeks off. I know it feels like forever, but they will head up to Philadelphia to take on the Union, who have had an up and down year. Remember, Miami beat the Union in their second game of the season, a 2-0 win, right when things seemed to be going well at the very beginning. Back-to-back 2-0 wins for the start of the year. And Alex, as they head into this second half of the season, they'll do so with and without some players. We'll talk about that in a sec. But with all of this going on this past couple of weeks, so many players away from the team with international duty or rehabbing with injury, all of this noise around Lionel Messi and everything, how do you bring it back now with what this team has for these 5 games before Messi arrives to be able to get the most results out of the team that still will be on the pitch come Saturday evening?
Yeah, that's going to be honestly difficult, even as writers and journalists covering the team. That is, even just talking about the game, it feels so like not inconsequential, but just kind of mad. This is like pre-Messi stuff before July kicks in, and then, the team is really going to skyrocket. But still, it is still a competitive match in the MLS regular season. And obviously you want, the fans want to see Miami win, because they're looking at the standings now, they're a couple points back of a playoff spot, and
8 games back. 8 points back.
So 4 points back of the 14th spot, and a couple, would you say, like 8 points from the 9th spot. Yeah. So yes, they do need a win, and it comes at a difficult place, against the Union. And I'm stammering because I'm just struggling to see how they, with their poor form, how would they win this? But I will say there is maybe some upside here. The Union, they did play last night, and it's going to be a very quick turnaround for them to play this Saturday. So that, plus, they've been on a kind of a downward streak. Their last game before their 2-2 draw against Orlando last night was a 2-1 loss against San Jose, and then last night the 2-2 draw against Orlando. Obviously, they're going to be heading back home to their stadium looking for a win, but they're going to be on short rest, tired. Maybe Jim Curtin, Philadelphia head coach, will rotate a little bit. Maybe this is where Miami can pull off one of their hard fought draws. I know they haven't drawn a single game this year, which is a big no-no, honestly. If you want to make the playoffs, you have to scrap out some points. And they may not be the most offensively dynamic team at the moment, but right now, they could bunker down. The Union are very good. They've got some good players. Julian Carranza, ex-Miami forward, and Daniel Gazdag, just a baller. Even their center backs are just so difficult to play against. Jacob Klesnes and Jack Elliott. Might be gonna have to bunker down and just get a point somehow. I'm going to be honest. I don't see them winning in their current offensive state, but they do. Javi Morales can have them in a defensive shape that just sees them see out a point. The Union are going to be on short rest. They're going to be looking to push forward and get a win after their 2 game winless streak. And Miami have an opportunity to really just kind of turn the tide a little bit before the Messi and the Busquetses of the world get to South Florida. Maybe they can eke out a draw, and that'll build morale within the roster right now, because they're on a poor run of form, and it's no doubt, you can't hide from that, and the optics don't look good, but obviously it does feel like they're just waiting for the summer to bring in more additions, bring in a coach so they can say, okay, hey, here we are, we finally arrived. Then we can go attack for that playoff spot. But still, this is another conversation for another day. 2024, I think that's where you judge the team harshly, because they'll have all their players set and a coach in place. But the season is going to be a little super weird, honestly, Ian. It's like part one, pre Messi, part two, post Messi, like injuries. Neville was fired. What do we do? But yes, I hope that I don't see Miami winning, but I hope they can eke out a draw against the Union, because it'll be such a morale boost for the team. And then as you head into July, it'll kind of help them build. And then they play Austin after that and at home, and hopefully they can just get something going. Just a draw or something.
Well, so let's look at where this forces them in the Eastern Conference standings, or where it puts them in the Eastern Conference standings,
Yeah.
as they are in last right now. The Eastern Conference, but they've only played 17 games. So Inter Miami will have a game or two up on every other Eastern Conference team when Messi arrives, especially against their rivals in this 2 weeks off, thanks to the Gold Cup. The Gold Cup being at Drive Bank Stadium actually winds up helping Miami a lot, because they will have one or two more games with Messi than their Eastern Conference foes will. And furthermore, in this 2 weeks that they've had off, their Eastern Conference rivals have not been able to do a lot. Only Chicago Fire, the only team from 9 to 14 that won over the past couple weeks, and that was last night against the Portland Timbers. Toronto lost to Cincinnati 3-0. The Red Bulls tied. NYCFC tied twice. Charlotte tied as well. DC United also lost to Real Salt Lake. So anytime the teams are losing or dropping points like that while you're not even playing, that's an advantageous situation for Miami. So they really didn't, over the course of these 2 weeks off, lose really any momentum or any gap. That gap is not that much bigger than it was on June 10th when we last saw them in action, Alex. And I bring that up because that means that you're in a situation here where 2 weeks ago, DC United was 7 points ahead of Miami. We're now back here and it's 8 points, and they have to host Cincinnati on the weekend. A Cincinnati win, and combined with, if Miami's able to pull off a win, all of a sudden you're right back in the mix. And here we are in the second half of the season. So this hasn't gotten too far away. And that's why these 5 games are going to be so important. Because if you think that Miami is going to be an upper echelon team in those 12 games, that's about 1/3 of the season, when Lionel Messi and when Sergio Busquets are on the field, if you're expecting Miami to be one of the best teams in the league, let's say that their points per game is 2.2 points per game, right? In those 12 games, then you're right around what? You're right around 25, 26 points. If you need to be at around 42 points to get into the playoffs, 44 points, 45 points to really be safe, you need to get 2 wins in these 5 games to be able to be at 21, 22 points for when Messi shows up to have that run down the stretch. So that's why these 5 games to me are going to be very important to keep within striking distance. You can't fall too far out, in which case you're going to need Messi to go 12-0-0, and that's really going to be too much. I mean, the only person in the world who probably could do it is Lionel Messi, right? So
yeah,
I don't know what I'm saying there, but you'd like not to ask him to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anyone, like you said, anyone who can do it, it's literally Lionel Messi. But yeah, like I said, that's why I said earlier, they're gonna have to find a way to kind of grind out wins and maybe a draw. Let's start with draws first. First Miami need a draw. And I don't think there's a better time to do it than away at Philadelphia Union, with the Union coming off a game midweek. They're going to be tired. Jim Curtin, head coach of the Union, will probably switch around his starting 11. And Miami will probably not have, Yedlin will be gone. Kristoff will be out due to a visa issue. Miami won't have their full strength starting 11, but they'll they'll be pretty close. And I think just grind out a draw. You need points on the road, and like you said, Ian, yeah. I don't know, like before their summer reinforcements come in, I don't know how they're going to win. Honestly, and being completely honest here, but grinding out a draw, I think against a Union is a good start. Maybe against Austin FC at home after this, maybe they can get a win. I know Austin has had an up and down season, so I'm not entirely sure. But like you said, Ian, they're going to need to pick up a win throughout these next couple of games if they do want to sniff of the playoffs. Like I said earlier, we're going to judge this team in 2024 when they have their full strength, their players and their head coach. But the second half of 2023, it's going to be a struggle for them because they started off so poorly. Injuries hampered them, and it will be difficult. We won't lie, but hey, if there's any team that my Inter Miami has been able to do this consistently throughout their history, is just to turn on a switch and suddenly start playing better. So it's literally in their history. So if there's any team that can do it, especially with Messi, Busquets, and potentially others coming in looming, it's definitely the Herons.
Yeah, and the thing that we've seen in the past, that the root cause of a lot of these woes has been road performances, and particularly road goals. So I
Yeah.
want to talk about that for a sec. This is a team that right now in 8 games on the road this season only has one win. They're 1 win, 0 draws, and 7 losses. In 8 games on the road this season, they've only scored 4 goals in those times. 2 of those goals happened in their only win against Columbus. So they've only scored 2 goals in those other 7 games that were losses. This team is -8 in goal differential on the road this season, and is one of the poorest offenses. I think it is the worst road offense in all of Major League Soccer. Now, granted, Major League Soccer has one of the most dominant home field advantages statistically in terms of home points per game than any league in the world. It's one of the strongest in terms of home points per game. So that's to be expected. That being said, Miami is still far beyond the pack in terms of road woes and road performances. They are far below the league average of road points per game. So going into a game like this where you're on the road against Philadelphia, and then you also have the other road games that are going to be against DC United and the final game in this 5 game stretch against St. Louis before you break for the League's Cup. These 3 games are the ones that you really need to find performance in and finding goals in. For Joseph Martinez, for Leo Campana, for Benjamin Kremeshki. These are the guys I'm going to look to in these couple of games to see how they're finding form before all of these massive changes. It's going to be a lot easier when you have world-class help. Can you eke out the results necessary to put yourself in a position for that world-class help to put you over the limit and over the edge to get into the playoffs? Once they get into the playoffs, if this team makes the playoffs, no one's going to want to play them. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's just
Yeah.
about getting in this year.
Yep.
And to be honest, right, a game at the end of June counts for just as many points as a game in September. So this team, this game on Saturday is going to count just as much as every single of those 12 games that Messi plays for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I think your point to Joseph and Campana, I think it would not it will boost them significantly. Just getting their goal scoring tally. I know a lot of people have been harsh on Joseph and Campana as well, but I'm pumping the brakes on that because they haven't had a consistent distributor to them they're able to score consistently. Excuse me, I'm mixing my words here, but yeah, they haven't had a creative presence, a distributor through the middle of the field so they can score consistently. So I'm pumping the brakes on, they should score more with the 2.5 chances they've had per game. This is a Joseph Martinez who played for Atlanta, who he needed to be fed consistently. Whoever was Almiron or Julian Gressel during their heyday, he needs to be fed consistently. And right now, Miami they don't have that. Even last season, where we saw Campana just, what he scored, 12 to 13 goals. We know he can score in this league, because he had, Higuain or Bryce Duke at the time, or even when Alejandro Pozuelo came in, he had someone consistently giving him the ball, and even I'll even throw in like Robert Taylor or playing on the wing, when he's on, he's a great dribbler. But yeah, I think I would like to see them score because we know that their quality. We've seen them in practice. That you know that they both want to score so badly and help the team win. We know both of them can score in this league. I it's going to be hard without a real creative, you know, progressive passer without Messi coming yet. But like I said earlier, heck, it doesn't even have to be a pretty goal. It can come off a set piece or a scrappy, fight in the box, or it just needs to be something to give this team a little bit of pride and hope before heading into the dog days of summer when the new boys come in and kind of shift everything around. So the against the Union, it will be very difficult. I expect it to be, the Union are coming off a short rest, so hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for Miami. But like you said, Ian, I think even Ben Hakramaski, who he peaked pretty high, and we're all high on him. But naturally, when it comes to young players, it takes time for them to be a little bit consistent in their play. And hopefully with Ben Ha, if he starts on the weekend, this can be one of those games where, similar to the Columbus game where he got that really great assist to Leo Campana. Excuse me, I can't start. When Messi comes, I'm not going to be able to call Campana Leo anymore because that's generally what Messi's known as, Leo. But yeah, Ben Hakraski, that assist he had to Campana against the Columbus Crew, where he kind of headed it down, and Campana took it first time, I believe. And yeah, he's gonna have to have another one of those games, but yeah, somehow Miami's gonna have to find a way. And there's probably difficult team, the Union, yes, but the Union short rest rotation. Maybe they're in this weekend will be a good time for them to bounce back against a tired Union side.
Now, Inter Miami on the other side of the ball is going to be in a world of hurt as well. Almost all of the injuries or departures right now are on defense. We already know that DeAndre Yedlin will be playing for U.S. men's national team at the Gold Cup, as well as Kamal Miller will be playing for Canada at the Gold Cup as well. So call them out. Sergei Kristov dealing with a visa issue, returning from Euro qualifiers where he started against Malta in their final qualifier as well. A big win for them. But also beyond that, you still have no Ryan Saylor for this weekend. Franco Negri did return to training, could possibly play this weekend. Also, Sergey could get the visa issue solved and play this weekend. Dixon Arroyo is in training, but I don't know if you can expect him back yet. So beyond that, at center back, you got Chris McVeigh and maybe Ian Frey, and maybe Sergey. If Franco Negri can go, then that's your left back. At right back, maybe Harvey Neville gets the start. And then in the midfield, you have David Ruiz and who. So in the back line, it's gonna be a lot of very big questions to solve to figure out what they're going to do in terms of there. What do you like in terms of mixing and matching these options?
Maybe Ian Frey or Chris McVeigh can pair up. I know we're both super high on Ian Frey. He's been playing in the midfield to kind of cover for Dixon Arroyo's injury. I know Arroyo will be back for the well, I don't know if we'll start, but he is healthy enough to play in Saturday's game. So Dixon Arroyo will be a much needed help in the midfield for Miami during this time. I don't know if you said, Ian, but Kamal Miller, I don't know if he's training then going back to the Canadian national team, or is he training and then playing in this game and then heading back to Canada. So I don't know if Kamal Miller is available for Miami, but if he's not,
Yeah. Yeah. So
okay.
he is here right now and has been at
Okay.
training. He was at training Thursday. Now the question is
Mhm.
that Canada doesn't start their Gold Cup play until later. Canada doesn't start play until Tuesday. That's their first game. It's up against Guadeloupe. And that game
Okay.
here, let me just check real fast. That game's
Yeah.
at BMO Field in Toronto. That's the lone game for Team Canada that's up there. So theoretically, he could play Saturday and then right from there go to Toronto. I guess that's an option. That's absolutely an option.
Hasn't that happened before with Inter
Yeah,
Miami? I
they
think
might. Well, it
one
happened with
player
David
came.
Ruiz. It happened with David Ruiz before
Yeah.
the U20 World Cup, where he stayed that extra game that was his red card suspension game that got rid of his red card suspension, and then he went off to the World Cup, which was a great use
Yeah.
of the time there.
Very smart. But yeah, I think if Kamal Miller's up to that,
It's an
he
option,
could
yeah.
pretty much he play on Saturday and then fly up to Toronto to play for Canada. But yeah, some rotation options for Miami will be needed. I think attacking wise, everyone's healthy. Joseph Campana, Nicola Stefanelli. Obviously, they lost Coco Jean to that uh, nasty knee injury on the New England Revolution turf, which was a big talking point. Robert Taylor, I think I already mentioned. Stefanelli, I'm going over the list now. Just a couple of attacking options. Ben Hakremeski. So let's see. Yeah, MLS rosters. I think that's going to be another conversation for another day. Just kind of expanding it to get more bodies on the team because of between international play and injuries. It gets brutal for a lot of teams, not just Inter Miami. I saw that. What was it? I think it was the Whitecaps who had what three midfielders available, and one of them was an MLS no MLS MLS Next Pro player, and yeah, it just gets really skint at times. So hopefully, as the league grows, maybe they can expand the roster just for depth. But yeah, I think Javi Morales is going to have his hands full with this game and this roster. Hopefully, Kamal Miller will be able to stay. That'll give the defense some more, just bodies back there. I don't know. Yedlin will not be available, I don't think. And yeah, Harvey Neville is there. And worst case scenario, you can play Chris McVay there. Maybe he is. We saw him play as a left back last season. So, yeah, just it's gonna be kind of like a patchwork starting 11 for Miami. But at the end of the day, they're gonna have to find a way to win, a draw somehow, and that is up to Javi Morales and the players at the end.
Yeah, and to be clear, Yedlin's already gone to the World Cup. I mean, or to the Gold
Yeah,
Cup, the U.S. men's
Gold
national
Cup.
team's first game. I keep
Yeah,
doing it. I keep doing it with every tournament.
yeah,
Apparently, I got Women's World Cup
uh,
fever. I'm just looking forward to the Women's
yeah,
World Cup. We got less than a month away.
yeah.
No, but Yedlin, their first game against Jamaica is Saturday night, right after Inter Miami's game. It's a 9:30 start.
That's gonna be a
So
good match.
yeah, so
Jamaica,
that'll
they
be
bought their like eight.
that'll be there. So just to go through, you mentioned that Philadelphia had some rotation of a squad midweek. They did start
Mm,
Carranza and Uri, which are very
yeah.
deadly up top. Daniel Gazdag obviously will come back and return. I think he was at international duty, if I'm not mistaken, and also adds another threat. That trio has just been absolutely dominant the past year and a half in this league. If Miami were to have Miami's done a pretty good. I mean, I would say they've done a pretty good job of silencing Carranza at the very least. And
Yeah.
then past that, maybe Uri Gazdag probably specifically has been able to find success against them. But what do you do if you're Javi Morales? All of this has been going on. You're trying to focus on making a team ready. You're trying to focus on which defenders you're going to even have available to play, whether it be for international duty, injury, or visa issues. How are you going to stop this trio attack for Philadelphia Union?
I don't know. Stingy defense and clogging the passing lanes, and the Union play a very direct style of football. They like to get in behind, use the wide channels, and their fullbacks to advance in that 4-4-2 diamond they have playing. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Javi hasn't switched to a back five, back three this season. So yeah, I think it's limiting their offensive chances in transition. You don't want to get too stretched against them through the middle of the park, specifically their winger. Their two forwards and their fullbacks will hurt you in that regard. Also, the late runs from their four midfielders, particularly Daniel Gazdag and if Alejandro Bedoya does play, he's also very, very effective in the final third. So, yes, the Union play a very direct, expansive brand of football. They will not hesitate to play a long ball over the top. So, with that, Miami's going to need some pace at the back. Kamal Miller. Hopefully, he's able to stay because he's just good at 1v1 tackles. Maybe not the quickest player, but he's solid in defense. But yeah, Miami's just gonna have to find a way to limit those transitional moments for the Union and strike when they can on the offensive end when they have the opportunity. So I think it's gonna be a super wide open game. Miami can get really torn apart in counterattacks if they're stretched too wide. But yeah, Javi's gonna have to kind of keep them compact, keep the ball away from the Union. In my opinion, I don't know if they're yeah, if you keep them away, they obviously won't be able to score. So keep it compact, keep the ball. Miami needs to keep the ball. Just kind of, I'm trying to just see it in my head because Union are just so deadly going forward. If Miami keep the ball, try to progress through it through the wings because Union don't play with wingers, so they only have one fullback there. If they play through the wings, maybe isolate them 1v1, flood the numbers in the box with Joseph or Campano or both of them. Maybe they'll get a chance to head it in on goal, but lots of moving parts. But I think for Miami, just stay compact, don't get lost in the transition moments, and make sure that you keep Carranza and Ure. I never know how to pronounce his last name. Ure. Keep the two Philadelphia forwards quiet mainly, and hopefully they can grind out a draw.
Yeah, the other thing that worries me is when you talk about that transitional play, it's that second opportunity, the trailing midfielder that's able to do that. That's a lot of what Gazdag does. But we
Yeah,
saw it even last night with the wonder goal, Jose Martinez's first ever goal, first career goal, and it's a golazo for sure that he nailed from like 30 yards out. It's really amazing. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. One of the goals of the year, absolutely a candidate for it. But that kind of worries me because you're going to need one of those attacking midfielder winger types that will be trailing. And we talk about the loss now of Coco Jean, who will be out for the remainder of the year with his ACL. There's no real one of those players in terms of Kremeshki or Stefanelli really that will track back in the same regard that Coco did, almost playing like a right wing back at times this year to cover and allow Yedlin to sort of have a little more freedom. So you don't really have that right there. The one thing that I could see happening is, and I've talked about this several times this year, we haven't seen them go back to it, is Robert Taylor playing that role. He and Yedlin have really played well together. You won't have Yedlin, so at times Robert Taylor's been great cover for Harvey Neville, for DeAndre Yedlin, for being that tracking back midfielder that supports those two CDMs in the 4-2-3-1. I could see him playing a nice role there. Even when they were playing that 4-3-1-2, he played that fairly nicely as well. You're going to need that support in midfield, and I wonder if he's the guy that you turn to try and get that support. He had a great 30 minutes that he played in the Euro qualifiers. He was one of the best players on the field in it. Had a goal almost a goal and knocked right off the woodwork. He was 31 for 31 on passing. He had the most dribbles of anybody in the game. So you could tell whenever Robert Taylor is having a lot of dribbles, he's having a lot of fun. He likes to take those one-on-one
yeah,
challenges. And in 30 minutes to have that big of an impact at the European qualifier level is really high and speaks to him. We talked about the Euro qualifiers, Alex, but as we close out the show, I do want to talk about the Gold Cup for a very little bit. The USA obviously trying to defend their championship and games going on here at Drive Pink Stadium on Sunday. It'll be Trinidad and Tobago against St. Kitts and Nevis, who won a penalty shootout very late into the night when they tried to battle that monsoon that was consuming us earlier this week. That game didn't end until close to 1 o'clock in the morning. They will take on Trinidad and Tobago Sunday afternoon from Drive Pink Stadium. Also on Monday, June 26th, it'll be a doubleheader. It'll be El Salvador versus Martinique at 6:30. And then at 8:30, it'll be Costa Rica, Panama. That probably the highlight game of the first round in terms of, head-to-head, two teams that will really want to go at them, Costa Rica and Panama. That game will be Monday evening. And then the final game, one game that I will be at that I'm looking very much forward to, on Tuesday, it'll be Guatemala against Cuba. That game at 8:45 on Tuesday night. Very looking forward to that one. Obviously, I love Guatemala, my time that I spent there, and the great Cuban crowd, the great Cuban fans that will for sure pack Drive Pink Stadium. Should hopefully be a lot of fun. Who is rooting for which teams, and all those teams that will be at Drive Pink Stadium. Let's talk about the U.S. men's national team. DeAndre Yedlin will be there. Drake Callender went to the final of the Nations League. Man, there are so many international tournaments now. Went
yeah.
to the final of the Nations League. Didn't get to play, but was called up again, which was very nice for him. Let's talk about the Gold Cup with USA having St. Kitts and Nevis, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago in their group. Probably, I mean, the potential for some upsets there. Jamaica, a much stronger team than we've seen in the past. A team that's made, I think, 3 out of the past 4 semifinals in the Gold Cup, including one final along the way there. They now add on a Leon Bailey from Aston Villa, who will play for them now. So a much improved Jamaican squad that does pack some Premier League talent and could give the U.S. men's national team some problems. A U.S. men's national team that isn't playing with the likes of Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie, etc., in this tournament.
Yeah, and I think people are kind of sleeping on Jamaica. They have a really good side now with Damari Gray from Everton switching over to
as well.
Play for them now, which is super great for them, and it only helps their attacking front line. And I think he'll do super well. So, yeah, I think that'll be a tough game for the U.S. Like you said, Ian, it's not, it's not. I don't want to say first team, but it's mostly MLS guys. We saw the European-based players at the Nations League, and now it's time for, like you said, the DeAndre Yedlins. Let me look up the roster here actually real quick. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of MLS-based guys, and yeah, for instance, Aaron Long, Matt Miazga, DeAndre Yedlin, Matt Turner will be there again because he's a starting keeper, and keepers don't really need to be rotated. But yeah, just a lot of MLS-based guys, a couple of the European guys staying on. So I'm really curious to see how they get on. Will they play the same tactics? The first team that they won the Nations League. Obviously they are very technical, and same thing with the Gold Cup squad. But obviously different players do different things, and maybe with the more CONCACAF based like Jamaica, they're probably gonna have to switch it up and play maybe a bit more direct style. CONCACAF can get super crazy, so it'll probably be a lot of expansive games. The roster is filled with talent, and I'm actually looking forward to the U.S. During the Gold Cup this year, and hopefully they can do us proud. And obviously DeAndre Yedlin for Inter Miami, we want to see him get some minutes and play well as well. So yep, a lot of players, a lot of MLS based players, Brendan Vasquez, Jordan Morris, Kate Cowell. Should be a fun roster. BJ Callahan, interim head coach until Greg Berhalter comes back in. And yeah, let's see how far they can go in this.
Yeah, 16 of the 23 players from MLS for the U.S. men's national team. Definitely a weaker roster than what they put out in the Nations League with a lot of their star players, which saw, if you watch that Mexico versus United States game, United States was in a whole nother planet than Mexico right now. It actually got their coach fired as well, who had only been there replacing Tata Martino for about 4 months, I think. He was hired in February. So yeah, just USA clearly was the class of CONCACAF in that tournament. Now with more of a domestic-based roster, we'll see if it's a little bit closer between the likes of them. Mexico, Canada, Jamaica, Costa Rica, Panama has improved as well. So we'll see how that goes. Alex, great to be back talking football with you, and football on the pitch, right? Not just wheelings and dealings of the transfer market, but actual games that will actually be played on an actual weekend of MLS soccer. And we will have all of the coverage here for you at the Heron Outlet. Make sure you follow us where all of our outlets are. You can follow us, subscribe to the Substack, theheronoutlet.substack.com. If you're watching us here on YouTube, please click that red button and subscribe, leave a like and a comment. We love all of our YouTube viewers, as well as if you're listening on the podcast, whether it's Spotify, Google, YouTube Music now, Apple Play, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can follow us there at the Heron Outlet, and also on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Twitch. We have a lot of places where you can find us and have all the coverage of Inter Miami, Major League Soccer, and more. For Alex Winley and for Austin Robillard and our producer Andres, I am Ian Hess. This is the Heron Outlet, and we'll see you back here this time next week.